Hello everybody, Joe Locklear here. I'm going to be teaching today on the secret to real estate investing. And yes, there is a single secret to real estate investing. It's a secret that I'll bet none of the gurus have ever told you. But in about 50 minutes, when this class is over, you are going to know what the secret to real estate investing really is. And as we begin this class, I want to do a little self-analysis. I want you to do a little self-analysis, and I want you to do it. Imagine that you're taking a trip. In order to plan a trip, what is the first thing that you have to know? No, it's not where you're going. It's where you are right now. A lot of us omit this step, and it can be very, very dangerous to omit it. You need to know where you are because you can't plan anything unless you know exactly where you are at the beginning. So let's take a look and kind of do a little self-analysis. Where are you now? What is your position? What is your situation? Number one, let's talk about cash and credit. How is your cash? What that means is how much money can you actively invest in the real estate business right now? And I want you to write that down. In fact, hopefully you'll take some notes. You can go back and watch this class again. You may want to do that. But for right now, I want you to kind of do an analysis. Tell yourself, I can invest this much money right now without putting myself in a bind. And then next, I want you to think about your credit situation. How's your credit? Do you have an 800 credit score or a 400 credit score? And I want you to be honest with yourself, because if you're not honest, you're not going to know which direction you want to take in real estate. So write down what you think your credit score might be as you write down your cash position. Now, the second thing that I want you to think about is, what is your experience? What's your education? What's your background? I have a degree in building construction. Excuse me. Done a lot of building construction, been a project manager. So that suited me to be in the renovation business, which I'm in and have been in for a long time. And my experience and my education kind of pointed me in that direction. So what is your experience and what is your education? I can tell you, if you have a graduate degree, that's not going to hold you back in real estate, so don't worry about it. If you're a high school dropout, that's not going to hold you back in real estate. Don't worry about it, but you need to understand where you are there. Let me give you an example. Maybe you have a degree in finance and you've worked for banks. You might be well suited to work in the short sale business. But if you have a construction degree, and if you don't have any degree but you've worked in the construction trades, you may be suited to be a rehabber. So it does make a difference. So I kind of want you to write down what your strong points are in your experience and your education, and perhaps what your weak points are. One of my weak points is doing paperwork. I hate paperwork. I hate property management. So I avoid those like the plague. But you need to understand what your experience and education is. Okay, and number three, and maybe the most important of all these, is how much time can you invest? You're investing time right now. You're investing about an hour to go through this class. Well, how much time do you have? If you work a full-time job, you may only have a few hours a week. But if you don't have a full-time job, you may be like me, you have 60 hours a week. You may only have an hour a month. And yes, you can be successful in an hour a month. I'm going to show you how today. But I want you to write down how much time that you have to invest in this business. And once you've done that, hopefully you'll have a pretty good shot at seeing where you are. Do an honest self-analysis. You can only begin your journey from where you are now. And if you don't have a good, clear understanding of where you are now, then you're not ready to begin. So let's do just a quick review. How much cash can you spend right now, and what's your credit rating? How about your education and experience? Write down your positives and your negatives, and how much time can you invest. Settle on an amount of time that you can invest in the real estate business right now. Things will change, but you have to start somewhere. So we need to know exactly where you are right now. Okay, now you know where you are. What is the next thing that you need to know before taking any trip or planning any trip? That's correct. Where do you want to go? I'm going to call that, what do you want real estate to do for you? What is your number one goal? You may have a bunch of goals, but what's number one? Why are you even watching this video? Why did you join ProRia? Why are you interested in real estate? Now, when I ask that question of people before they take this class, the number one answer is cash. They want cash and they want it as quickly as possible. Now, after going through this class, that'll change with most people, but that is the main answer that I get. And when I went full-time in the business in 2001, I'd been in the business back in the 80s, but I went back full-time, left my job, and since I'd left my job, I left all that cash on the table. I needed to replace it, so my number one goal was cash income now. So what is your number one goal? Maybe you say, I've got enough cash income now. Maybe you're on retirement. Maybe you just have a good job. You don't want to leave it. That's fine. But your cash income is pretty much covered. But you're concerned about retirement. So perhaps retirement is your number one goal. I'm moving between these two right now. I'm getting close to retirement, and I'll never really retire, but I'm getting close to where I can get Social Security in a few years. So that is my number one goal right now in my real estate career, is holding rental property that will pay me cash for the rest of my life. So your goals may change, but where are you now? What do you want real estate to do for you? Okay. How about maybe you say, got some cash income, I think my retirement's going to be okay, I'm going to get by, but I'm not willing to settle for average. I want to be wealthy. I want true financial independence. That's a wonderful goal, and that is a goal that most of us will get to if we're successful in the real estate business. Even though you may not start out with this as your number one goal, you may be in the position that you can start out with that as your number one goal. You just need to recognize exactly what you want from real estate. What is your number one goal right now? It all happens right now, and you got to make decisions right now. So what is your number one goal right now? You know, when I boil all of my goals down, they all seem to boil down to freedom. What I want really is the freedom to do what I want to. I want to be able to get up in the morning and do what I want to without having to worry about, can I make money doing it? And to me, that kind of sums up all of my goals. So the cash income, the retirement income, and the wealth and financial independence, to me, all spell freedom. But you got to get down to where are you right now? What is your beginning goal? Okay, and then what is your time frame? Getting back to our trip analogy, let's think about this. I'm here in Jacksonville, Florida. If I need to get to California, what are my options? Lots of options. I can drive, I can take an airplane, I can hitchhike. But what if I'm under a restriction of I have to be there in 12 hours? Now what are my choices? All I can do is take a jet. I can't hitchhike, I can't drive, I can't even take a slow prop plane. I'm down to where I've got to take a jet. And your career is the same. If your goal, for example, is cash income now, and now is you need it in 30 days, you only have one option. There's only one thing that I know you can do in real estate to make that money and make it that quickly. But if your goal is retirement income and you have 20 years to get there, that's a piece of cake. You can do so many different things. Just about everything you see in this presentation is going to be available and open to you. So your time frame is really going to affect what your goals are and what you're going to need to do. So what we've done is we have looked at where you are, where you need to be, and how long do you have to get there. Do you have 20 years, 10 years, 3 weeks? It's really going to make a difference. So hopefully you've made some notes now and you have a pretty good idea of where you are now, where you want to go, and how long it's going to take you to get there, because your real estate business must reflect your goals. Now, hopefully this will give you enough information by just looking at this class and writing this down that you can come up with a real simple business plan. And at the end of this presentation, I'll make you an offer. I'll be happy to meet with you and help you with that. I'm at no charge, of course, if you're a ProRia member. But right now, what I want you to do is take the information that I've given you here, or you've given yourself. This is your information. We're going to talk about what I call a menu of options. I'm going to go over 4 or 5 different aspects of the real estate business, different paths that you can follow, and we're going to look at the positives and the negatives of each one, and I want you to see how they fit in to what would be your simple business plan based on where you are, where you want to go, and how long you have to get there. And we're going to look at the pluses and the negatives of each technique. I'm sure you've been to a lot of gurus who have tried to sell you a package, and they've told you, boy, this is the greatest thing. It's about this particular technique. Maybe it's lease options, just using that for an example. Lease options are the greatest thing in the world. You don't need cash, you don't need credit. They talk about what they have for you. You need to understand it's not about that, it's about what you need. So as we go through these options, I want you to look at them from your particular situation and see if maybe it's something that you want to pursue and learn more about. Let's begin with buying and selling as is. I call this wholesaling. When I came back into the business full-time in 2001, I needed cash income now because I only had about $60,000 saved, and I could invest that, and I did. It was a different world back then. The internet wasn't nearly as strong, so I did a lot of marketing that I spent a lot of money for. It paid off. I bought and sold 52 houses that first year back in the business. I was a true wholesaler, which means that I went out and I bought houses below wholesale, and then I sold them to other investors at a wholesale price, buying and selling as is. So what is the upside? It generates quick cash. So if you said you need quick cash now, wholesaling may be what you want to pursue to begin with. Another upside is you don't need a lot of capital to do it. Now, when I came back in the business, I spent a lot. I actually hired college students to sit in an office and address postcards and do research. All of that's available on the internet now. So you don't need a lot of capital. Low personal liability. What does that mean? If you buy a property and you go out and get a 30-year loan, you have liability until you pay it off. In the wholesaling business, you don't have that liability because you are simply putting a house under contract and then selling it to someone else. The only liability you really have is if you can't close, you may lose your binder deposit. That may be $1,000, so it's not a lot of liability. Now, I've never surrendered a binder deposit because I always close. If I'm not going to close, I don't put the house under contract because my reputation is worth a lot to me. But when it gets right down to it, my only liability really is the binder deposit that I have paid. So that's the upside. Quick cash, low capital required, and low personal liability. So what is the downside? Well, it's time consuming. If you told me you only have a few hours a month, you're not going to be a successful wholesaler. Wholesaling takes a lot of time. Now, you might go out and find a deal, but if you're going to consistently make a good living as a wholesaler, when I say a good living, I'm talking $250,000 to $500,000 a year. If that's what you want to do as a wholesaler, it's going to take you 60 hours a week. It's going to take you a lot of study. It is not easy. Okay, so it is time consuming. Number two, you need refined buying skills. You have to learn those skills. No one's born with them. You have to have a good overall understanding of the real estate business. Of course, you can obtain that right here at ProREA because I teach on all aspects of the real estate business, but I've had to know all aspects of the real estate business. A successful wholesaler is a true expert, not just in wholesaling, but in everything to do with finding deals, selling deals, transactions, financing, renovation. You've got to be up in all of those areas to be a real success in that business. Now, that doesn't mean you can't be part-time and make a little money. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you want to be on the top tier of wholesalers, it's time consuming and you need refined skills. And then last, your income is unstable. What that means is you may make a lot of money in a month. I don't know what the most I've made in a month is, but it's up there. A lot of money, and I've gone a month and not made a penny. Overall, in a year's time, I do very well wholesaling, but it is unstable income. So if you don't have any money to get by and you're depending on this full time, you need to be real careful as you begin in the business because you may not make any money for several months. Okay, so the upside, quick cash, low capital required, low personal liability. The downside, it's time consuming. You need refined buying skills. The person that says, oh, let me teach you to be a wholesaler, and they charge you a lot of money, You may not have what it takes to be a wholesaler. The success rate is low, but those that do succeed make a lot of money. And you may be able to go out and make a little money, but if you want to really make a full-time living, it's not that easy. You need refined skills, and the income is unstable. Wholesaling is a full-time business. However, even an old blind hog can pick up an acorn every now and then. I have had one friend that went out, didn't know him at the time. He found a deal, and he said, you know, buy this deal. I bought the deal. He made $5,000. Never did another deal. That's all he ever did in real estate. The first deal he found was a good one. So you can get lucky and find a deal here and there. But again, it's a serious business if you want to do it full time. Okay, the next technique that I want you to look at is buying, rehab, and reselling. When we resell, most of us sell retail. So this is called retailing. You would go out, you would buy a house, you would have that house renovated, and then you would sell it generally to an owner occupant. A lot of people are drawn to this part of the business. The upside, high profit per deal. Um, when I did 52 deals my first year back in the business, I averaged probably $5,000 to $6,000 a deal. But the upside of buying, rehabbing, and reselling, you can make about $15,000 a deal on the average. You'll have some you make 20 or 25 according to what end of the market you're in. The higher the profit potential, the higher the risk. It's that simple. Because once you get out of the realm where you can rent a house and get a reasonable return, then it is a retail only, and we all know how fickle the retail business can be. So it is high profit per deal, however, higher than wholesaling. You don't need a lot of cash. You can borrow that cash. As long as you have decent credit, you can go and borrow the money to buy the house and to get it renovated. Now, you could, if you don't have good credit, you might be able to go to an individual and do a partnership. If you can find good deals, you can generally get the money. Okay, so another upside is you're helping people in neighborhoods. Well, what does that mean? There is something about going into a neighborhood and buying the ugliest house there and making it the prettiest. The neighbors will come over and thank you, and you'll know that you really are helping these neighborhoods. Urban renewal here in Jacksonville, Florida, about 95% of it is what I call the investor worker bees. They go out and they buy these bad houses and they get them renovated and they put them out on the market as rentals, or they resell them. That's a real service to your community. The downside, it takes longer to do a deal. I might put a property under contract, have it sold and closed in 3 weeks and have my money on a wholesale. But on a retail, and I've done a lot of retails, I might go through, it may take me 6 months to do that retail. From the time I buy it, I do the renovation, and then I market it, and then I close. So it takes longer to do a retail deal. And you've got to be or hire a contractor. You've got to learn contracting skills. And we do have a class on renovation. We can teach you that, but you don't learn it overnight, and you're going to make some mistakes. So that is a part of the business. You may want to go out and hire a general contractor on your first deal. I know a fellow who does a dozen retails a year. He makes a lot of money. He hires a general contractor on every rehab, but you do have to deal with the contracting, and that would be a negative. You don't own being a wholesaler. And you are dealing with retail buyers. Retail buyers are a real pain in the rear. They do things like come in, sign a deal, they buy your house, they make a deposit, they get down to closing, and the day before they go buy a new car. So the lender does a quick search. They always do just before closing, find out that their debt ratios are off, and they can't get a loan. Meanwhile, you've tied up your property for 30 days. So you got to deal with these retail buyers, and usually you want a real good realtor to do that for you. You want an expert, because there's a lot to that, and that is a negative. When I sell to a investor, generally they have cash, or they can get the cash, or I've set up the money in advance. Seldom does one ever fall through, probably 1 in 100. But with retail buyers, you may have two fall through before you ever get the deal closed. So you've got to deal with those, and that's a definite negative. But it is a profitable and an enjoyable business. A lot of people really enjoy rehab. I enjoy it. It's in my blood. I did one down in the historic district, bought the house for $35,000. I had a partner on it because I needed $150,000 cash to do the renovation, but we did real well. We made about $30,000 a piece when we sold it. Really enjoyed that deal because it was a beautiful, beautiful historic property. Consider rehabbing and selling to landlords for quicker turn and less qualifying problems. You could go buy a cheap house, get it ready to rent, and then put the tenant in and then sell it to a landlord. A lot of people are doing this, and they're selling to the hedge funds. So you may not have to deal with these rehab buyers if you stay in the investor part of the business. Okay, this is a twist, kind of halfway between buying and selling and being a landlord. I call it delayed purchase. I don't like the term rent to own, which is what a lot of other people call it, or lease option. I call it delayed purchase, and I do that because I want my tenants to get a feeling of being owners. I don't want them to think it's tenants. So the upside here is you can sell it for full value. If I do a delayed purchase with someone, I'll charge them maybe $3,000 to move in, and I'll let them make their down payment over time as they live in the property. I can sell to them full value. No discounts. I don't have to get cheap. I'll sell sometimes for more than the appraisal, because if the appraisal comes in lower than the sales price, if they decide to buy it in say 36 months, it can always come down. It's hard to go up. So that one of the upsides is you can sell for full value. You can get it occupied quickly rather than wait for a retail buyer. If you can find a delayed purchase buyer, they can move in and they rent while they're qualifying. Okay, so you get it occupied quickly. Get money coming in, especially if you're making payments. That's important. And you build pride of ownership. They may be really in there just renters to begin with, but they see themselves as owners, so they begin to have pride in this property. They maintain it, they keep it up, and so you have a different class of person. You have a person that really wants to buy. So legally, they're just a renter when they start, but they're building that pride of ownership, which is going to give you a much better tenant. You eliminate maintenance cost. When I do a delayed purchase, my buyer, which I don't call them tenants, I really call them buyers, they maintain the property, not me. So you can eliminate that maintenance cost. There's a downside to everything. The downside is you need 36-month financing or be able to leave your cash tied up for about 36 months. I do a 36-month option or a delayed purchase program. I've got to be able to finance that house for 36 months. So I either got to go refinance or leave my cash tied up. Okay, you may not make much money for the first 3 years. You may cover your cost, you may make something per month, but your main profit is going to come when they actually do buy the house, and that may be 3 years down the road. So that is a definite little bit of a downside. Okay, and you've got to help these tenants qualified. If they were squeaky clean to begin with, they would not have done a delayed purchase with you. You may have to help them with their credit, watch what they buy, help them with their income ratio. So you've got to work with them to get them fully qualified. And you want to get them fully qualified to move into Fannie Mae backed financing, which you can do. And I do actually have a program to do this. I've got all the paperwork, everything. I can make that available to you. So, you can help, but you're going to have to help them qualify. Okay, and the other downside is this is not easy to do. You better know what you're doing. You need a lot of expertise. I went to an attorney and had all of my documents drawn up. I actually drew them up and they reviewed them. They did make some changes and said this legality, that legality. There are some legalities that you need to watch because you never want to transfer an equitable interest. And you can do that by doing something as simple as allowing them to make their option payment or their down payment and their rent in a single check. That would give them an equitable interest in Florida. So know what you're doing or you can really, really get your tail under the rocking chair here. So it requires expertise. Be careful. Avoid methods and contracts that are not attorney approved. Just don't go off and use somebody's lease to own deal because they told you it was good. Make sure that you've got some expert advice if you're going to be doing the delayed purchases. It's a great business, really, really good business model. However, Make sure that you know how to do it right. Okay, here comes my favorite. Build a rental portfolio. Those of you that said your number one goal was wealth and financial independence, this is how you do it. I'm a past president of the Jacksonville Real Estate Investors Association. I was vice president in 1984. That's how long I've been in this business. I'm now the president of the Professional Real Estate Investors Association. I have seen a lot of people come and go in this business, and I can tell you that without exception, all of the ones that I know that made it long term and that became wealthy in real estate, didn't begin wealthy but became wealthy, did it by owning real estate, not by buying and selling. They built a portfolio of property that they own. Some started residential, then went commercial. Some even went industrial, but most of the people that I know made their money in single family rentals. Okay, so what is the upside? You can retire in 5 to 20 years. I can actually show you how in 5 years, if you're really, really aggressive and you only want to retire on about $3,000 a month spendable income, you can do that in about 5 years. Try that on a job somewhere. You'll work 30. Okay? And if you have 20 years, it's a piece of cake. You don't have to be very aggressive at all. So the upside is you can retire in 5 to 20 years. It is a solid path to wealth. As long as you know what you're doing, you don't over leverage, you do things right, it's a very, very solid path to wealth. It's not get rich quick, but it's get rich steady and very solid. What do you get? You get cash flow. That's the money that you get to keep each month. It's all your expenses taken away from all your income, and what's left is cash flow. In this market, it's such a great market right now, you can easily get $250 to $350 a house cash flow, even when you refinance them. If you keep them cash, you can spend, say, $40,000 and get a spendable cash income of about $600 a month. Figure the return on that and stack it up against the stock market. Okay, you get equity growth. Well, most people think equity growth comes from an increase in value over the years. That's not what equity growth is. Equity growth is when you finance a property and someone else makes the payments and pays it off for you. That's what a tenant does, and that's equity growth. Your equity is what you own free and clear, but you can buy it with somebody else's money using bank financing, and then someone else can pay it off for you. That's equity growth. You get tax breaks, you get depreciation, you get some interest write-off, and you get expenses to write off. And you may get appreciation. It's not guaranteed. Historically, here in Jacksonville, appreciation's been at about 6% a year. But for a couple of years there, we didn't hardly get any. Now I'd say we're probably at 2%. So even though it's not guaranteed, and you should never, ever buy a house because you think it's going to appreciate. Assume it'll never appreciate a penny and make the decision based on that criteria. Don't depend on appreciation, but it is a bonus if you get it, and you probably will. So that's a wonderful upside, but there's a downside. Like everything else, the good and the bad. What is the downside? You've got to become, or you've got to hire a manager. I am the world's worst manager. I either want to kill my tenants or take them groceries. There's nothing in between. I hate paperwork. I'm a terrible manager. So I have hired a manager. None of my property is managed by me. I have a manager for all my property. The 10% I pay is well worth it. They do a much better job than I could ever do, and I don't think it costs me money. I think it makes me money. Plus, it keeps me from having to deal with these tenants, so I can go and concentrate on building my portfolio, which is what you want to do. If you want to go get a few properties and manage them, you're not a real estate investor. You're a toilet unclogger. I mean, I'm not putting you down. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But if you want to move up and build a portfolio that will make you wealthy, hire a property manager. So that's a downside. It takes time to build cash flow. This doesn't make you money in 30 days. It may start making you money each month, but you need more than one of these, and it's something that you have to build. It's kind of like Ray Kroc said, grinding it out. You're going to grind it out. But if you have a manager to do the hard stuff, it's not that hard. I've seen people build a fantastic portfolio in as little as 5 years, but it takes time. You're not going to be rich by the end of the year. I have people come to me, I need $3,000 a month income, and I need it by the end of the year. I want to buy property. I want to buy rental property. It doesn't work that way. It takes time to build your wealth with rental property, but it is very solid. Let me give you a little analogy. Walk into your bank and tell them you want to borrow some money. They're all smiles. Tell them that could they find you somebody to pay that back other than you. Now they think you're joking. They're looking at the calendar to see if it's April 1st. Go a step further and say, hey, I want some tax breaks, and can I make sure that I get some appreciation? Can you guarantee all that in this particular money, because I want to invest this in the stock market? By now they have called the guard to get rid of you. First of all, they're not going to lend you any money to invest in stock market. The only way you'll get that money is for them to be able to put a lien on your house, a second mortgage, an equity line. So they know that they want real estate as security. So, if you look at this, what you just described, what you just asked them for was real estate. Okay? You buy it. If you want to refinance it, you get your money back and somebody else pays it back. You get cash flow, you get equity growth, tax breaks, and appreciation. Real estate is, without exception, without any doubt in my mind, the best investment that there is. Even people that make their money in other businesses generally invest it in real estate. There's a saying, under all is the land, and that is a true statement. We're going to have another course that I'm doing. It's the history of real estate. You really want to watch that course, because it'll make you understand why real estate is what it is. Another downside is, now, building a portfolio requires discipline. If you can't discipline yourself, then you're going to have a hard time building a portfolio. You've got to learn to set aside money to take care of things that can come up. You can't just spend every penny that you make. You've got to have some reserves. So it requires discipline. It is an extremely good wealth builder, but it does require discipline. And the timing has never been better to acquire and hold property. I have a property that I bought last year. I paid cash for it. I'm in it at $22,000. My rent is $935 a month. After management and everything, I net over $700 a month. That's $8,400 a year on a $22,000 investment. I'll have all my money back in about 22 months, and for the rest of my life I get $700 a month, and I'll be able to leave that money to my heirs. So that is a real estate is just an unbelievable, fantastic investment, especially right now, because you can buy these rental properties right. Okay, here's another area that a lot of people get involved in, and a lot of people get involved in it because there are a lot of the gurus that push this. The reason they push it is it's very easy, or on paper it looks very easy to do. So we're going to talk about it because I want you to understand, and you can make money doing this, but it has its downsides like everything else. So what is the upside? The upside is that you don't need a lot of money to do this. You're going to be taught to lease a property and then sublease it to someone else. Or you're going to be taught to buy a property, leave the loan in the seller's name, just take over the payments, and then sell it to somebody else on time or lease it to somebody else. So it is a low capital investment on your end. You just need to be able to advertise. Okay, you don't need any credit. You could be, have a 400 credit score and work in that business. Low legal risk. Whoever sells you this package is going to have to give you all the ins and outs of the escape clauses that you have, but you're not going to personally guarantee anything here legally. I didn't say morally now, I said legally. So there is a low legal risk, and there's a high profit potential. Done right, you can get into some of these deals, and theoretically you can make a lot of money. So there is an upside. Low capital, no credit, low legal risk, and high profit potential. But there is a downside, and you had really better listen to me on this downside, because these gurus are never going to tell you this. It's complicated for beginners. If you think you can step out there and do this right now, like they all tell you, your chances of success are probably 1 or 2% that you can, because it is a very complicated business. You need a complete real estate education for success. To be able to do this, the only people that I know that have done this and been even a little bit successful are people that are highly skilled, have a really thorough real estate background, and it's not an easy thing to do. There are a lot of legalities to it. The gurus often only cover the shiny side of this. Let me give you an example. They're teaching you to go out and, let's say you buy a property subject to, you're going to tell that seller that you're going to make the payments and you're going to make them on time and you're going to take care of the property. And then you go and you lease or you sell that to somebody else and let them take that note over. Now legally, yes, they'll teach you how to cover yourself, but you've gone and you've told somebody that this is a good deal for them and that you're going to see that this thing is done right. What if the people that you sell to don't make the payments? You're going to make those payments for them? What if they do $10,000 damage to the property? That can easily happen. Are you going to pull $10,000 out of your pocket and repair that house? You're probably not. You're probably going to see somebody that depended on you and trusted you now really get it. Okay, and if you mess their credit up, you can have all the legal disclaimers in the world because this loan's in their name. I bet they're going to come back and sue you, and I bet the judge is going to be on their side. So be careful here. If you get in this business, you need to have enough backing, enough money to be able to recover from a bad deal, because if you don't, you could wind up in a world of trouble. So don't just look at the shiny side. Look at both sides of this business. And if you want to get in it, have at it. I don't do it. I have done it, and I don't like it, but some people do. I know people are successful doing this. So just make sure you understand the downside of this business if you're going to get involved in it, because you're going to have a lot of opportunity because the gurus really push this. Lots of disclosure is required and deals can go south. I've told you that. Hopefully you really understand this. You need to learn the real truth about subject to and how to do it the right way, and you'll learn that here at ProREA University. Okay, one thing you'll hear me talk about, and if you've gotten emails from me, I always sign your friend and fellow entrepreneur, Joe Locklear. I don't call myself a real estate investor. Now, I am, in a sense, a real estate investor because I have invested cash, and I've done it in something that I wasn't involved in. To me, that's what a true investor is. When you invest in a stock and bond, you're not supposed to have any or bond. You don't have any control over what's going to happen to it. You're a true investor. Or you're not supposed to have any control. I think there's some people in jail that tried to get control. But as an investor, you put out money and it comes back to you with more money attached to it. That's what a real investor is. Now, you can be a true real estate investor. That would be in making loans, making mortgage loans, maybe being a partner, but mainly making short-term or mid-term loans. So what is the upside? Minimal time required. I work with one particular investor. He doesn't put in an hour a month. I promise you the year doesn't go by that he doesn't make $150,000, $200,000. His results are predictable. In other words, when he makes a mortgage loan, he knows exactly what he's going to get back on that loan. Sometimes his money's only out for 3 months. He's making an interim loan that'll be refinanced out. That's most of the time. It is the safest venture in real estate if you know what you're doing and if you learn how to make these loans. You want to make them for a low loan to value, never over 70%. You want good property for security. You want good credit borrowers. Mainly, you want people that can refinance and pay you off. And you're charging a higher rate of interest, so they're going to want to do that quickly if you make the right loans on the right property to the right people. You have to learn that. You have to make sure that you're listed as the additional insured on the insurance policy. So if the house burns down or gets destroyed in a storm, you're going to get paid off before anybody else. So it is a very, very safe venture. There are huge tax advantages to being a true real estate investor. A lot of people want to work through their IRA. And if you learn about Roth IRAs, we have a class on that too, of course, and you can go out and make a lot of money tax-free wonderful, wonderful tax advantages here. Okay, but there's a downside to everything. What do you think the main downside is? I can only think of one. Guess what you got to have lots of? Cash, money. Now that can be in your IRA or line of credit, but you need cash to be successful. So it's fantastic upside, minimal time required, predictable results, safest venture in real estate, huge tax advantages. Make sure you listen to the class or take the class on the IRAs. Downside, you need cash, can be in your IRA or line of credit. The tax advantages of the self-directed IRAs are too good to pass up, and the sheltering aspects of the Roth are almost unbelievable. Okay, so we've been through the menu. Hopefully you've learned enough to be able to look at yourself and say, okay, I think one of these techniques, I want to learn more about it, I want to pursue it. And that's all this class is about, is for you kind of analyzing where you are and looking at where you might want to go in the real estate business. Just remember, you are the engine to success. Not any methodology or any technique. None of these are magic. It's all about you and what's going to work the best for you in your current situation. And my advice to you is that you must determine your best path. Nobody else can do that for you. And then based on your assets, abilities, goal, and time frames, that's what you've got to base your decisions in the real estate business, especially as you begin. Then you build your business plan. Now, if you're in Jacksonville and you need some help with that business plan, I've got a little questionnaire I'll send you. Fill out that questionnaire. I usually want to meet you for breakfast. We'll take an hour, 2 hours, whatever it takes. We'll sit and eat breakfast. I'm a cheap date. Meet up at the diner generally on Merrill Road here in Jacksonville. I'll help you with your business plan. I'll help you to put it together. It's simple. You don't need a 100-page business plan. You just need a few pages with your goals and how you're going to do it and breaking it down to daily activity. It's not hard to do, but you do need to build your own business plan. And you need to center your real estate education around your business plan. Next, just do it. Avoid the paralysis of analysis. Think about this for 30 days and you'll never do anything. You need to take some action right now. Determine realistic goals and time frames, then put your true assets and abilities to work in obtaining those goals. Do it now. Now, finally, I told you that you were going to learn the secret to real estate investing, and you are, and right now I am going to show you the secret to real estate investing. The secret to real estate investing is it is the fact that there is no secret to real estate investing. And guess what? I know we're playing on words, but it is a secret because here's what typically happens. You're interested in real estate, so you go to see one of the gurus. They're teaching a particular technique, and they tell you that it's wonderful, that it'll make you a lot of money, but they don't tell you, they tell you the shiny side, but they don't tell you the negatives. So you go out and you get involved in that, and you try it and it doesn't work, so you leave. The secret is it's about you. It's not about the technique. There are hundreds of ways to make money in the real estate business, but they may not all work for you. And that's a well-kept secret because each guru that's wanting a lot of money to sell you his particular package or her particular package is telling you it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. The secret is it's not, and there's nothing new under the sun. Nothing. Every technique that's out there has worked for some people and not worked for others. The secret is that there is no secret. Quit looking for it. Okay? Success in real estate investing begins with a little basic education and a good business plan. Next, you need to pursue detailed education specifically centered around your business plan. Finally, you'll need to develop the confidence and the motivation to jump in and make it happen. ProRIA is your source for these tools, mentoring, and motivation that you'll need to reach your true entrepreneurial potential. I want to leave you with my favorite quote, and this is by Teddy Roosevelt. It's not the critic that counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of the deed could have done it better. The credit belongs to the man in the arena whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again, who at best knows the high achievement of triumph, who at worst fails while daring greatly, for he knows his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls that know neither victory nor defeat. What are you going to do today to change your future for the better? The real estate business, if you'll learn it and do it right, recognize your assets and abilities, you can not only change your future, you can change the future of your heirs, your grandchildren. Real estate is a powerful, powerful tool if you learn how to do it right. And you're going to be able to do that now because you know the secret to real estate investing. I will see you on the next video. The next video is going to be on wholesaling, because each of these techniques that I told you about, I'm going to give you more education on it. Hopefully you have an idea. Even if you don't want to do some of these techniques, go through the class because you need an overall knowledge of real estate to be able to operate. I'm Joe Locklear. Thank you for listening to this class, and I will see you on the next one.